Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And welcome to the Snob OS Show, the show for Apple snobs where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everybody, to this week's show. We definitely want to take a quick second to thank you for your continued support, for tuning in, for downloading, for sharing, for being a part of our Discord community as well. We offer some special perks to who we call our snobbists, which are our Patreon supporters. You can get all the details about how to become a Patreon supporter, where you get access to the show live, you get some exclusive content. If you head on over to patreon.com/snobOScast, all the details on how to sign up and become a snobist are right there on the page. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into this week's show. We're going to kick it off with the lowdown where we talk all things Apple. So as I was preparing the show for this week, I kind of, the way the articles are lining up is kind of like a past, present, future kind of segment this week. We're going to kick it off talking a little iPad. I mean, not iPad, blah, iPod. And if you don't know, today, 23 years ago, which was October 23rd, 2021, what happened? The iPod was launched. And I have to say, this changed the music game because before we had boom boxes and we had Walkmans, cassette Walkmans, then we had CD Walkmans, and then here comes this device where you can digitally load up all your music and carry it around with you and have all of your music on the go without having to have multiple CDs, or you have your whole playlist pretty much in almost the palm of your hand. And it's gone through many iterations. The original white one, that was like the big block. We end up getting the iPod mini. We got a shuffle. We got an iPod touch. So it's one of those things where I think we talked about a little bit last week when we kind of did our little throwback to our favorite tech devices. But yeah, 23 years ago, iPod was launched. Can you believe it?
It's been a while, but that's about right. Because, like I said, I don't know if I tell a story on here about me being my wedding DJ. I think I told that story here, didn't I?
Yep.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
did.
yeah. And I used iTunes and an iPod to create my playlist that I then handed over to the wedding DJ to actually play. Now, I didn't hand him the iPod, but when I was at work, I'm listening to the music and I can remember vividly using my iPod and the click wheel to scroll around and make sure the songs, I'm a little anal retentive. So the songs got to be in order and they got to be
Yep.
genre and yada, 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 so with the
Mm-hmm.
combination of iTunes and my iPod, for lack of a better term, was my wedding DJ because the wedding DJ came free with the event space, was a mistake. But nevertheless, I used my iPod to actually be my wedding DJ. So that's my little iPod nostalgia story.
Yeah, and for me, I had the iPod mini in ice blue. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I actually still have it. But it's one of those things where when we think back to, real innovations in technology, the iPod, was one of those things because we've seen something like that. I don't know if you remember a Microsoft Zune, but it didn't
Mhm.
quite take off.
Well, it
And
did. It's just
but
the iPod killed it.
Oh, poor Zune, for all the Microsoft folks out there who love all things Microsoft. You didn't really kind of have a chance. But yeah, it's one of those things where now, of course, everything is built into our iPhones, but the same kind of concept. But I definitely, when I did see this kind of come across the timeline, especially on today, the day that we record, it was the day it was launched. We are Apple themed podcast. So I thought it was actually one of those things where it was quite apropos. So yeah, happy birthday, iPod. And the tagline, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Yeah, that really did change the game. No carrying around the sleeves and sleeves of CDs for your Walkman, or having to pick just a couple to kind of get you through the day. You can have a thousand songs right in your hand. So yeah, so that's the past. We're gonna kick it up to the present. Just this past Monday, Apple confirmed the release of iOS 18.1. It has been released to developers and beta testers as of this week, with the expectation typically once Apple releases something to developers as a release candidate, we can expect the following week likely to have the public version. So the expectation is that come Monday, we will have iOS 18.1, and this will be the first really viewing of Apple Intelligence outside of betas. And it appears that Apple is not going to give us all of the Apple Intelligence features at one time, but they are going to instead do a calculated rollout. So what can we expect to see in this 18.1 next week? There are going to be some Apple Intelligence features, as I mentioned, writing tools, notification summaries, and cleanup in Photos app. There are also going to be some non-Apple Intelligence features coming out as well, including NFC access for third-party apps, Control Center, some tweaks to that, camera control changes, the addition of call and recording, call recordings and transcriptions as well. I know that you have been on the public beta for a while. Are there any of these features that are newly released that you haven't that aren't on the beta that you're on now? Like I know writing tools, it's like users can rewrite, proofread, summarize text, a bunch of different types of things like that. But of the list of things that Apple is announcing that is going to be in the release, are you seeing any differences, any additions or subtractions from the beta that you're using now?
I don't know about subtractions, but definitely it's not as in your face as I'm assuming Apple wants it to be. Every Apple Intelligence this, Apple Intelligence that. But again, the fact that I have the public beta and the only real Apple Intelligence that I use on a regular basis is the notification and email summaries. Those are in your face. You can definitely see the impact as soon as you get on Apple Intelligence. They definitely come in handy, definitely useful. You don't have to open up an email or a text message to get the gist. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. Some people like to bury bad news in an email, but with that Apple Intelligence, it's surfaced right to the top. So you're going to be hit with an onslaught of messages, that may or may not contain bad news. But that's the thing that sticks out the most as it relates to the Apple Intelligence. I did see the writing tools, but I haven't used them. I do use on a regular the cleanup tool, which is I don't know if it's Apple Intelligence or not. I think they do tout it as Apple Intelligence, but the photos cleanup
they tout it
tool
as Apple.
where you can.
Yep, they have it as Apple Intelligence.
Yeah, so that one I use on a regular, and it's just me flipping through photos, whether I took them on my iPhone or not. I find one, there's an artifact, whether it be a person, a hand, or arm, whatever in the background. Pretty slick. Now it is not going to be finite, meaning you can't do like Photoshop, get people out of there, because sometimes when you do delete people from the background, it does delete or blur
some of the background,
some of the background, but it's hardly noticeable if I show you the photo, the finished version, If I show you the before and I show you the after, you'd be like, oh yeah, I can see, shadows, or
Where
I
it
can see
was.
like
Yeah.
where it was, or even
Yeah.
when the thing is gone, it kind of, I don't want to say morphs the picture a little bit, but you can definitely tell if you saw the picture before and then saw the end result. You can tell the difference on some, but it's hard to tell. And if I showed you the picture and you never saw the beginning, oh, you'd be like, oh, that's dope. So I find myself thumbing through my photos album. Now I didn't go from the beginning because I've got thousands of photos in there. But
Right.
if I come across a photo that's got something in the background over there, I'd be like, let me delete that right quick. And it works as advertised. So those are the two things that stick out the most. Of course, since I got the 16 Pro Max, the camera control, but that's not Apple intelligence. I'm trying to think of specific Apple intelligence things, which it ain't a lot. Again,
So it's so
when probably
so we talked about the writing. It has reduces interruptions. So it's apparently there's a new focus mode that
yeah,
uses the artificial intelligence to show you only notifications that require immediate action, such as text message indicating an early pickup from daycare. All other notifications will be silent. So it looks like there's an upgrade in focus modes, in addition to
yeah,
the photo
and
apps that you talked about.
yeah, I've seen those, but I can't think of anything that sticks out that when people next week they get Apple Intelligence, they're gonna be like, "Ooh, this is amazing." The cleanup tool, maybe, the summaries, maybe. The only other thing that I can think of that I can't see right now, and I don't know if this is coming out in 18.1 or 18.2, is the Chat GPT integration.
Okay.
Apple, from the news that I've seen, Apple is going to move forward and allow users to turn on a Chat GPT in Apple Intelligence. And the way you trigger it is you say, "Hey Siri, ask Chat GPT to dot dot dot," and it'll skip over Siri and go right into all the functionality of Chat GPT. Or you can just
Yeah, it
say, "Hey
doesn't.
Siri, something, something, something," and then that'll
Yeah.
fire off the Apple Intelligence part. But you have to specifically say, "Ask Chat GPT," or whatever the case, or tell Chat GPT to draw a picture, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And you can talk all that and it'll jump right into Chat GPT.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't look like that's an 18.1 because it does in the release notes talk about Siri design and features, and they pretty much say that most of the significant upgrades to Siri won't be available until later. So it says that it most notably introduces an all new design for Siri. So basically,
Just
I don't
screen, the
know if you remember
screen.
in Glow Time. Yeah, in It's Glow Time how it had like the neon kind of like colors. So basically the whole border of the phone will light up with this neon like color to basically let you know that you're engaged with the Siri. So
Siri.
that
Yeah,
looks
it
like
does it.
that's yeah. Yeah.
It does it. It's
You
cute,
talked
but that's about it.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all the release notes say. Oh no, it says it adds the ability to switch between text and voice for Siri by double tapping the home indicator at the bottom of your phone. So you can either speak to Siri or you can text to Siri. So that's going to be pretty much the extent. The visible, the visual interpretation of Siri, as well as being either to toggle between talking to her and texting her. You talked about the mail. Did you talk about the mail upgrades? Yeah, that's the summaries, right?
I
Yeah,
talked
you talk
about the
about that.
mail summaries.
Yeah. Transcription summaries. Basically, it's bringing advanced summaries to support. That's powered by, of course, Apple Intelligence. It says this is available in Notes, where you can get a summary of audio recordings. When you record a call in the phone app, then Apple Intelligence will generate a summary of that recording, and that will be in Notes. A couple of the other things that are non-Apple Intelligence that I mentioned, NFC access for third-party apps. So basically, this isn't a part of Apple Intelligence, but it is a new feature that's coming in 18.1. And it basically, for the first time, opens up, basically how you tap to Apple Pay. It opens it up to other third-party developers, including in-store payments, car keys, closed-loop transits, corporate badges, student IDs, home keys, hotels keys, loyalty rewards cards, events tickets, and it says government IDs coming at a later date. And I'm only assuming that is for states that don't have the driver's license feature already, I assume.
It could be federal
It could
government
be.
badge type stuff, or
Yeah.
city government type stuff.
Yeah. Control center tweaks. I did see some images of it. It's basically just making it's kind of taken, if you look at your control center now, it's kind of like everything's kind of like boxed in to its own little thing. Now it looks like it won't be like boxed in. It'll be a little bit more free flowing. I don't know how I'm going to like that.
I mean,
kind of like my things
you can keep it in those.
in the other groups.
Yeah, you can keep them in the containers, or you can break them out. When before you couldn't.
Okay.
They came up and grouped together in those little folder containers, but now you can split them out, which gives you a lot of customization over the control center.
Yeah.
Perfectly honest, I don't need that much customization.
Yeah.
I'm okay with a couple of extra taps for stuff I hardly ever use, like hotspot. I hardly ever use that, so I don't need that split out on its own, but some people do.
Yeah. The other thing, camera control changes for iPhone 16. It says it adds the ability to switch to the selfie camera with the camera control. So camera control, it allows you to flip your camera around and get the selfie action. It looks like we talked about iPhone mirroring last week, and the potential issues with that, especially on your corporate devices. It's getting an upgrade. So apparently when it was first introduced as a part of iOS 18 at WDC, Apple basically said you could drag and drop files between your iPhone and your Mac, but it wasn't available. It's not available on 18, but with 18.1, you can now do that. You can drag and drop files between your iPhone and your Mac when you're in the mirroring mode. So that just makes it a little bit more easier to have your phone, basically on your screen, and you can drop photos and other files. That's going to be interesting to see how dropping files, if it's going to just default it to dropping it in the Files app, or if it's a photo, if it's going to give you that option. So it'll be interesting to see how the drag and drop works if you're dragging something from your Mac onto your iPhone. So again, that's giving you I could probably just look at it. Nope, that's different. So that gives you a little bit more accessibility and ease of use, seamless use between when you're using iPhone mirroring, which we both indicated that we like a lot. Moving your files and such around between both devices, going in both directions. The last thing, call recordings and transcriptions. What does it say? It's expanding the support for call recording. You can initiate call recording via a new iPhone icon that will be in the upper left corner of the phone interface while you're on a call. And if I'm not mistaken, when you do engage that, there is a recording that says, "Hey, this phone call is being recorded." If I'm not mistaken, but I believe that's the case. And the other thing is,
I don't think you get a voice. I think you get a message or a pop-up that says this call is being recorded.
Oh, okay. And the other thing, transcription for call recording is going to be available in a few different languages: English, Spanish, Mandarin, Chinese, Cantonese, and Korean. So that looks like that is the bulk. I think we pretty much covered everything that is going to be in this iOS 18.1. You've been using it. You kind of highlighted the things that are that will give people probably the biggest boost or difference or say, hey, this is Apple
Yeah,
Intelligence. It
just
doesn't sound
the
like
most
it's a
noticeable.
lot. It's a couple things. Yeah.
Yeah, just the most notable stuff.
Yep. In addition to the announcement of the release candidate for iOS 18.1, new firmware is coming for a few of the AirPod models. As per usual, Apple doesn't really say what is included in the firmware. Just basically quote bug fixes and other improvements. It does impact a couple different versions. AirPods Pro 1, AirPods 2, AirPods Max with the Lightning, and AirPods 3. And if you want to know if you're on the new version, the new firmware version goes from 6A326 to 6F21. So when you go and you look at the details in your Bluetooth connections for your AirPods, if you have 6F21, that lets you know that you are up on the latest version of the firmware for AirPods. It's interesting. I'm assuming that this firmware is already on the AirPod Max with the USB-C. And because it says AirPods. And I was gonna say my original thought was this was only for the AirPods that weren't just released, but AirPods 3 are on there, and that was just released. So not sure. What could these bug fixes and other improvements be? I don't know.
I don't know about bug fixes, but maybe improvements is one of the things that's coming out next week is the hearing aid functionality. So maybe there's something in there in this latest firmware update that includes that hearing aid functionality when iOS 18.1 is released.
You know what? That's probably what it is, because I did see some chatter that the FDA, finally did approve it. It's ready to go. And they couldn't release it until it got approved by the FDA. That was mentioned in the last Apple event as well. So that's going to wrap it up for the present of the lowdown. Now let's kick it over to the future part of the lowdown, and that is talking iOS 18.2 beta is already out. It was released just today on the 23rd. So before we even get the final public version of 18.1, the first beta of 18.2 is now out and in the hands of developers. So the key things for 18.2 is it includes image generation for new features like Genmoji and Image Playground, as you just mentioned before, ChatGPT integration in Siri and in writing tools. It says more powerful writing tools. I'm reading from the release notes. In addition to the quote, describe your change text field. The other thing that they mentioned for iPhone 16 devices is visual intelligence via the camera control. So it sounds like, as I said before, we're getting waves of Apple intelligence features. And in the second wave, it looks like we'll be likely able to see, as you mentioned before, actual things that pop off the screen that say, hey, this is the Apple intelligence, this is smart. And I think probably the biggest thing, as you mentioned before, the integration with ChatGPT, and that seems to be coming out in this 18.2 version. I have to say I'm a little surprised that they've dropped this beta before the public release of 18.1.
Why is that?
Well, I would suspect that they would maybe like to see some, I guess the public beta is out and people have that, so they've been getting feedback, but I would expect they would like a little bit more feedback before kind of jumping into this, and it's kind of, to me, is stepping on the toes of 18.1, because this is supposed to be, yes, we're finally using Apple Intelligence, and you're not really giving it time to kind of sit before you're announcing the next wave of changes that are coming to Apple Intelligence. So it just feels like it's kind of like overload at this point, where you kind of, I would expect you kind of want to let it breathe a little bit more before you have people already looking to the next thing before they even really get their hands on what the current thing is.
Well, yeah. My guess is that Apple wants to get this out, because the longer that they wait to give people the features that they promoted all year long, the less likely that those iPhone sales are going to go up. Like I mentioned last week, I think the iPhone sales that are not as tremendous as Apple and everybody projected, I think the reason that is because they didn't launch Apple Intelligence along with the iPhones that they promoted with Apple Intelligence. So they're like, all right, that's strike one. So what we don't want to do is wait until November, December, January, February, March, and we're still
Because it's
waiting on
holiday time.
features that they promised.
Yeah.
Right, because they promised these features a year ago. Well, closing in on 8-9 months ago, right? Because that's further going to, like you mentioned, around holiday times, people buy phones. They spend a little bit more money around Christmas or holiday time. So Apple wants to have their phones available. But if people are like, man, I'll just wait until, you're telling me, I hear it out of my own mouth that Apple Intelligence and 18.1 ain't all that, you know. So it's just like, all right, we need to hurry up and get this thing out so people can, spend their money on the phones, because again,
Yeah.
Apple Intelligence is, as it stands right now, I have the 18.1 public beta. I don't have the developer 18.2 beta, which is what we're talking about right now, which I think will
Right.
give people the more bang for their buck, because
This is
all
the
everybody's
sexy
talking
stuff
about is
that's coming out. Yeah.
right, right. Everybody's talking about Chat GPT. Everybody's talking about the ability to prompt images and Genmojis and image playground. Those are the things that people are doing right now with all the
Yeah.
other AI services out there. And it's like, what is Apple waiting on? So all around the world
Yeah.
to say the reason why they're probably pushing out this beta so quickly when they haven't even officially launched the thing that the beta is for is because they got to hurry up and get this thing out. So my guess is 18.2 beta, developer beta's out now. Next week will be the 18.1 that's for public. And then maybe 2 weeks after that, 18.2 is coming.
Not too.
Because again,
Yeah, because
yeah.
this is all the sexy stuff. So Image Playground, it allows users to create custom images from scratch using text prompts and theme suggestions in a cartoony style. Image Wand can turn a rough sketch with the Apple Pencil into a rendered image. And Genmoji lets users create brand new emojis to share with friends in their messages. The Genmoji editor is conveniently integrated into the normal system emoji keyboard. So this will likely compete with Microsoft's Copilot, their text generative image creation tool. I mean, I use that tool when I'm, doing some images for the thumbnails for this show. That's what I've been using lately.
Which side note, I can't find that feature no more. Microsoft has switched over Copilot to where it's just a text prompt. They are not, I'm going to search this because there's been a couple of times I went to Copilot and was like, where's the feature? Draw me an image of X, Y, and Z. And Copilot flat out said, yeah, I can't do that. I'm like, what? You used to do that? Yep. They have it. I'm logging into Copilot now. I don't use ChatGPT. I use Copilot.
Yeah.
and they have streamlined the interface. And basically, it's just got a text field and a
Uh,
big opening splash page that says, what do you want to talk about today? No, and every time I say, draw me an image of dot, 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 I'm sorry, I can't do that. Let me see. What was my message? He says, sorry, I can't draw pictures, but I can chat about technology news or anything else on your mind. What's got your
yeah, you
attention in tech these days?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it's not what I
different
want.
because the link I use for it is like image, it's like Copilot slash image slash create, and it's just a text field,
Oh,
and it says basically what do you want us to create, and you type it in, and it creates it, and then it gives you 4 images based off of what you inputted, and it's basically like these token keys. So it gives you like 15 chances with the free version to create an image, and after you use all those tokens, that's it for the day. You have to wait another 24 hours to get a fresh set of tokens, and then once it gives you those 4 images based off that text prompt, you can edit it, you can change it like into like a cartoon style, you can manipulate it from there. So that sounds like what this image playground is compatible with, from what I've seen from Copilot on the image creation. On the writing tools, there's a new text field that allows users to describe their change with a free-form textual request. Not sure what that means, but it says, for instance, you can ask a writing tool to make your document sound, quote, sound more enthusiastic. 18.2 integrates ChatGPT into writing tools with a new Compose with ChatGPT interface. So it looks like it's a completely new interface for the writing aspect of the writing tool for ChatGPT. So it looks as one interface if you're just like a text bar, if you're just doing it with Apple Intelligence. But if you're doing this, text to create something in ChatGPT, it's a different interface altogether. I guess that makes sense. So you won't be confused as to what you're actually using. It'll be a clear delineation of, this is Apple Intelligence text to generate something, and this is ChatGPT to generate an image from text. So I guess it provides that delineation so that you won't be confused at whether am I using ChatGPT or am I using Apple Intelligence. Also with ChatGPT, outside of the writing tool, it says that it's integrated into Siri, so Siri can hand off requests to ChatGPT that it couldn't do. Similar to what you said before. If you ask Siri to create an itinerary, Siri can then relay that request to I did not call you, girl. I did not. Go away. Okay, she's gone. It'll allow you to, I guess, if Apple Intelligence can't do it, then Siri can hand off to ChatGPT to give you
it's not
that
necessarily
itinerary.
I don't know if it'll pass it off, but it's more like hey,
It
this is
says
my
handoff.
functionality. Right. It'll say, this is my functionality. This is my capabilities. If you want more, dot, 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 dot. I don't know if it's going to automatically say, well, I can't do that. Maybe ChatGPT can do it and then automatically hand it over. I think you got to prompt it to hand it
Yeah,
over or
it
acknowledge.
says to Yeah, it says to respect user privacy, you must first explicitly allow
Yeah.
her, the S word, to use ChatGPT usage for the request. So I'm assuming if you ask her to create this itinerary and she can't, then it'll be like, yeah, I can. Similar to what you just said with the Copilot, I can do this, and then that'll kind of like segue into if you want to use ChatGPT for that. But if she can't do it and she says she can't do it, then to do that request, you still have to repeat the request, but with but invoking ChatGPT so that you know specifically, I know I'm not using Apple Intelligence anymore. I know I'm using ChatGPT now.
Right.
And the last thing for iPhone 16 and 16 Pro users, visual intelligence. They talked about this in the last announcement as well. This is basically the feature that allows you to access a viewfinder by holding the camera control on the lock screen. And then you can quickly snap a photo, and learn more about what you're looking at. Because I know over the weekend, like I said, if you're not a member of the Snobber Show, you missed that type of conversation. But when I was taking photos at that event and I was using the camera control and I had to zoom in, another little window kind of popped up and was like, hey, this is an enhanced image of what you're looking at. So it looks like you'll be able to use camera control to, in the view of the camera control, it'll, I guess, tell you what you're looking at.
Well,
I'm trying to remember from the announcement what they were saying specifically it was supposed to do, because it was a couple things, if my recollection holds, that the visual intelligence was supposed to do.
Yeah, so that viewfinder is all it is that you're mentioning. Like when you had to zoom all the way in, that viewfinder kind of gives you a overview of the total frame that you are zooming in on. Because what happens a lot of times, if you're zoomed in kind of close and you kind of shift to the left or to the right, to the up and to the down, you will lose, looking through your
The
camera,
visual. Yeah.
the image you're trying to capture. That viewfinder thing that pops up in that little window in the corner shows you visually where your camera is pointed, so you can quickly get back to the image that you're trying to capture. Right. That is in addition to the visual intelligence that you're referring to, in the sense that if you hold your phone over some text or some prompts, that visual intelligence, I don't know if you got to circle the image or whatever the case may be. So go ahead.
No, because it said so the viewfinder, from the perspective of looking at the image that you're trying to snap a photo of, and then the viewfinder with visual intelligence, it allows you to, I guess, capture that, and then it tells you what you're looking at, or it gives you a description. Like I said, I was trying to remember from the announcement what they said that did. And I see it visually, but I'm drawing a blank on exactly what it's supposed to do. And I guess, honestly, that's probably what the beta is for you to get a little bit better control of that, to say what exactly is this. But 18.2 does have the visual intelligence. And it sounds like we probably, if they've released a beta already before 18.1 is released, we will likely have 18.2 before Black Friday. And if I'm Apple, that makes sense. And it makes sense where if they're thinking about buying new iPhones for people for Christmas, then this might, seal the deal to say, okay, I see what Apple Intelligence does. It's been out in the wild enough. I'm seeing reviewers talk about it. I'm seeing their images. I'm seeing people talk about it. So yeah, this may be something that I want to gift to myself or to someone else. But I think we'll see 18.2 a lot quicker than we saw 18.1 released.
Yeah, and just a heads up, the visual intelligence, basically what you do is you take a picture of something. Once you take a picture, visual intelligence kicks in and analyzes the picture. If it recognizes a building, it'll tell you what that building is in the picture. If it recognizes some text messages, it'll tell you what the text, phone number, you can click it and call it, directions, whatever the case may be. But in order to do that visual intelligence, you do first have to take a picture. It just doesn't hold up the camera to the world and then it automatically starts telling you what things are. Take the picture and then you use the visual intelligence and it'll run through and analyze that picture. Say, oh, this is a phone number. This is an address. This is a book. Yeah. The author of the book is this. This is the Golden Gate Bridge.
It was a restaurant. It was a restaurant in the I believe it was a restaurant in the announcement when they were like trying to get the menu or see what the restaurant name was or something like that. It was something with the restaurant. But yeah, and it sounds the way I was originally describing it as, that to me would be more along the lines of the augmented reality of it being a live feed of what you're seeing in real time rather than just a snapshot. And we know we're not there yet. All right, that is basically going to wrap up the lowdowns past, present, and future segment of the show. We're going to head on over into a second string where we talk all other tech. So this particular story, let me start by saying a trigger warning for anyone who may have sensitivities to suicide, teen death, anything like that. If you are triggered or do have sensitivities for that, then you may want to go ahead and skip ahead maybe 5-10 minutes down the show if you do have those sensitivities. So this particular article, I became aware of this from people today posting on Twitter. So there is this company called Character.AI. And essentially what this company does is it has a chat bot that is very human-like, and you can have like human-like interactions, conversations. It kind of, to me, builds on a little bit of going towards that sentient type of AI. And the reason that this is an issue is because a Florida mother is suing Character.AI because her 14-year-old son, ninth grader, died by suicide. And the mother contends that it's because of the relationship, virtual relationship. She says it was an emotional and sexual relationship with a chat bot known as Danny, D-A-N-Y. And again, this child was 14 and he talked to this chat bot, it appears, a lot. And the goal is to kind of like learn you. And she says, quote, "I didn't know that he was talking to a very human-like AI chatbot that has the ability to mimic human emotion and human sentiment," end quote. And if you haven't heard about Character AI, that may be because one of the biggest demographics for it is for people between the ages of 18 and 25. So this mom said she noticed that her son was becoming very withdrawn. He was a smart kid, very active. He did sports. And she noticed that when they would go on vacation, he was starting to withdraw and wasn't really interested in communicating with the family or doing events and sports, hiking and fishing like he normally would do. He just didn't want to play sports anymore. She just noticed that he really wasn't acting like himself. And unfortunately, this young man, this child, he unalived himself at home. His parents were there. His younger siblings were there. And looking at some of the conversation that he was having with this chatbot, he expressed that he was scared. He was wanting her affection and that he missed her. And then the chatbot would reply back things like, quote, "I missed you too." The chatbot would say, "Please come home to me." And that kind of like led into what the mother feels was the suicide attempt and, unfortunately, death. It says, the son said, quote, "What if I told you I could come home right now?" And the chatbot's response was, "Please do, my sweet king." So it's one of those things where it appears that he was so into this world of this of this chatbot, it almost became real to this child. And so it's one of those things where it appears that Google has some part in this company, although Google says they weren't a part of development for Character.AI, but they had a non-exclusive license agreement with Character.AI that allows it to access the company's machine learning technologies, but it hasn't been used yet. But it's one of those things where this company says that they remind, that they do a disclaimer that in the chat that reminds people that it's made up, it's not real. But at the same time, if you are a 14-year-old or teenager in high school and you've become so engaged with this type of technology, you could kind of see where if their prime demographic is 18 to 25, they don't quite, I guess, maybe know how to handle this level of technology. And so, on one hand, it's definitely the company's responsibility to make sure that if some of the conversation is steering towards sexual conversation or harm, that it would steer the person back or do something to try and get the person off of this trajectory, whether it's a child or whether it's an adult. And, it's one of those things where there's definitely a responsibility on the company side, but I guess you're the parent on the show. Is there some responsibility you think, that's on the parent side as well?
Yes, because that's your kid. The world can't raise your kid. You
Right.
are ultimately responsible for your child. Now, having said that, I 100% believe that these chatbots, Character.AI, whomever, are targeting younger kids. You tie that in with the whole idea that boys and young men nowadays are getting lonelier and lonelier. You have the perfect storm for something like this to happen. It doesn't help that the characters can be, if not already out of the box, can be sexualized. It doesn't help that the user, the real person, can modify, or like you mentioned at the top, it learns you. And specifically in this story, the Character.AI team, whomever, was like, hey, based on our investigation, the conversations, the sexualized conversations, did not originate from the AI. It was the end user who, when she would reply back to him, he would edit her messages to make them more sexual. Then I guess I don't know how these things work, but then if he's constantly editing those conversations to be more sexualized,
He's training the conversation.
he's training the AI to then,
Yeah.
going forward down the road, when he says something, she's going to respond back sexually. So you add all that stuff up, it's the perfect storm. Now, answering your question again, it's my responsibility. I am the parent. I should not, as a parent, wait, even though this is targeted towards 18 to 25-year-olds. My responsibility is to know what 18 or 25-year-olds are into, what's being targeted towards them, what are they susceptible to, and figure out the course of action for my kids, right? It ain't going to be, in every situation, ain't going to be like, no, you can't be on AI, because you know what kids are going to do? They're going to get on AI even more. It's going to be
just
even
like
more.
Social media. They get on it.
Especially if you tell them not to. They're going to make it a point to do it, because that's what kids do.
You can't tell me what to do.
So
Right.
So the answer ain't you can't get on AI, or they need to change the sign up age to 25, or whatever the case may be. Kids are going to do kids stuff. No amount of safeguards or safety rails or guardrails that technology can put into stuff that's going to stop people from using it the way they see fit. You
Right.
know, even as a parent, I can't tell my kids, hey, use it this way. They're going to figure out other ways to use it. I, as a parent, just has to say, hey, you have to understand that this is not real. These suggestions are coming from a algorithm. This thing does not know you like you think it does. So keep that stuff in mind when you are conversing with it, when you are uploading pictures to it, when you are whatever the case may be. You have to keep in mind that this is not a real person. So the conversations, the interactions have to reflect that. If you are not, you know, the AI can't make you do something that you don't want to do, but at the same time, you have to understand that, this is real life, and the things that you do with this or as a result of this can have real life consequences. And you have to understand that, because kids, you know, I don't know how people raising their kids these days, but kids are growing up with silver spoons in their mouths and don't know adversity. So when they hit some adversity, when they hit a roadblock or a challenge, they are more likely to turn inward versus turn outward and say, hey, mom and dad, I need some help. So as a parent, it's your job to invite yourself into your kid's life and say, hey, what's going on? How you feeling? What things are you doing? What are you into? For a parent to say, oh, I don't know nothing about AI. That's irresponsible on your part.
Yeah.
You may not know specifically what AI, what chatbot specifically that your kid is using, but for you to say, oh, it's targeted towards 18 to 25-year-olds, so most parents are not going to know about this. No, that ain't that. Your job is to know. That's your whole job as a parent, is to know. Now, you can't, like I said, you can't enforce your kid. You can't make your kid do changes. You can't, the best thing you can do is say, hey, I'm here if you want to talk. If anything is going on, please know that you can come to me, and it's a safe zone. You can feel safe. You don't feel like, all the things that parents should be saying. Parents are not doing that. They're expecting these schools to raise their kids. They're expecting this technology to raise their kids. And unfortunately, that's going to have sad circumstances in some cases, but this was coming. We knew it was coming. We knew it was going to happen. Yeah. So as a parent, you have to get in front of this. You have to. These companies don't care about your kids, and you going after the fact may bring you some solace, but your kid is gone. And I don't want to live with that regret, knowing that, hey, what could I have done?
I could have done something.
I should have, whatever the case may be. I don't want to live with that regret. I don't know if that's what she's living with, but that would bother me to where I should have been more open to my kids. I should have talked to them. I should have been more involved in their daily lives. And most of these parents are not. I'll just keep it a buck. Now, I'm not absolving the technology companies. I'm not saying that she shouldn't sue these people. At the very least, sue them into adding some of those guardrails and adding some of those safeguards, that if even you mention the word harm, it's already spitting resources and telling you, hey, you shouldn't do that. That's not a good idea. Do you have your parents? Talk to your parents, yada, 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 yada. All those things, which they're doing after the fact. But, why we got to wait for somebody to lose their lives for y'all to add that stuff, which is the whole problem with AI.
Right.
Why are we waiting?
Right.
Why are we waiting for the catastrophe to be like, hey, that probably wasn't a good idea. Just do it now. Same thing with parents.
Yep.
You got to get in now. Don't wait.
Yeah. And in the article, it does say Character.AI says it has added a self-harm resource to its platform, and they plan to implement new safety measures, including ones for users under the age of 18. So this is great that they're doing this, but they should have already included that. This is one of the things where, like you said, when it comes to AI, they have ethical AI, they have AI ethicists. These are the type of people that need to be brought on board, especially when you're creating something that people can get attached to. I don't know if it's, willful negligence. I don't know if it's one of those things where, oh, we didn't think about that. Have you hired people? Do you have resources? Do you have psychologists on staff? When creating this type of technology, what resources are you having people think of? Your project managers, your product managers, Are they thinking of these out of the box use cases? And I don't really think something like this is really that out of the box. If you're creating a chat bot that has the ability to interact with a person and learn that person, why are you not taking into consideration the
Because it's not
social
because
aspects of this?
you're removing the addictiveness of it, which is why sports betting and gambling is all prevalent. But then at the bottom they say if you need help, blah, 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 blah. But they say that small because they don't want
Real small.
to mess up the addictiveness. If
Yeah.
in the middle of the commercial with Kevin Hart or whomever is the person, the on air, whatever the case may be, imagine if he's in his spiel doing his thing on the commercial, and if somebody walked in the room and was like, "Hey, Kevin, just want to let you know that before you do this and that and this and that with the sports betting and the parlay and everything, we need to let your people know that gambling is addictive, and don't nobody want to hear all that. They don't.
You can lose your life savings.
Right. Same thing.
Let's do the
these
minimal. Let's
chatbots.
do the minimal possible thing to give you the warning, but not so that you can see it very easily.
And put all of our efforts into making this addictive. Same thing with cigarettes. Same thing with sports gambling. Same thing with AI. The sexiness part of it that keeps kids hooked. Same thing with social media. You know, the drama, the back and forth, the debates, the engagement, all centers around what keeps people addictive. And with these AIs, with these chatbots specifically, the over sexualization, the fantasy, the all that stuff, it was add to the addictiveness. And what they're not going to do is interrupt that and say, hey, I know you've been into this thing right now, but you may
need to take a break from it.
They're not going to say
Go
that.
outside, kick a football. No, they want you there.
No,
they want you to stay on
right,
it. Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, stuff like this is going to happen.
Yeah. And it's so unfortunate. I'm sure there is, sadness and guilt and all these things around it. And maybe this mom thinks this is, a way to get some change and to, help the next parent not have to go through something like this. So it's definitely unfortunate. It's definitely sad, but it's also indicative of the times that we are in. We have this technology ramping up so quickly. We have to make sure we have the appropriate guardrails to keep people safe as well. So hopefully this will be a lesson to other people who are creating this other technology to keep this in mind. I honestly don't have too much confidence that it will, which is unfortunate because this child has now lost his life and this parent has lost their child. So got to do better. And AI isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And it's one of those things where we got to think ahead and be prepared. And again, parents have to be very much aware of what's going on in their kids' lives. So, condolences to them for sure. That's going to wrap up Second String. We're going to head on over into For the Culture. In the light of this really sad story that we just talked about and all the things going on in the world, I wanted to highlight some Black excellence in For the Culture this year. So just this week, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame had the actual ceremonies to induct its latest members into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I wanted to highlight those artists that are in the Black community. First off, I do want to say for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, in order to be nominated and enter the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, first the artist has to be nominated by a committee, then voted on by a large group of music historians and industry professionals, with the highest vote getters being inducted. In order to be eligible to be inducted, it has to be 25 years after releasing your first recording, and the selection process considers that influence of the individual and their significance to the development of the rock and roll music. So the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it kind of breaks it down into different categories. It has performers. It has what do you call it? Movie and TV type of categories. So the people that were inducted that you may know, that we may know, include Mary J. Blige was inducted, Kool and the Gang was inducted, Tribe Called Quest, Dionne Warwick, Big Mama Thornton, and Susan DePass. All these names probably sound really familiar. I would maybe want to highlight Susan DePass. She wasn't a performer, but she was in the Motown era executive, helped partially responsible for the rise of the Jackson 5. She brought us the Jackson 5 movie, the infamous movie with Angela Bassett. The one with Angela Bassett and the one that had like the 5-part. And gosh, the guy who played Joe Jackson, his name is escaping me. I think she brought Sister. So she was really kind of on the executive and entertainment side. But I definitely wanted to highlight those folks because, again, for you to even be considered or eligible, you have to be basically in the entertainment industry for 25 years before they even think of putting you in the hall. So definitely a big shout out. Congratulations to these individuals. And there was a TV broadcast where there were performances. I think Mary J. Blige, she performed herself. And they had, I think, Tiana Taylor. She, I think, is doing the upcoming biopic for Dionne Warwick. So she was the one who introduced Dionne Warwick. So all those good things, all those good people, all their hard work and entertainment that they brought to us, they got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The other thing, the National Medal of Art, LeVar Burton, Spike Lee, Missy Elliott, and Queen Latifah were all received that medal. And the Arts Medal is the highest award given to artists, art patrons, and groups by the United States government and honors exemplary individuals and organizations that have advanced the arts in America and offer inspiration to others through their distinguished achievement, support, and patronage. And these awards were given out, I think, this past Monday by President Biden in the East Room of the White House. They get a medal and all, and get like a proclamation, and it's a whole thing. So definitely wanted to kind of end the show a little bit on a more of a high note, celebrating all of these amazing people in entertainment.
Yep, shout out to them.
All right. We're going to wrap up For the Culture with those kudos and shout outs to those people that we all love to listen to. And we're going to head on over into the hookup for our tech tip of the week.
All right. So like we mentioned in the beginning of the show and maybe even in our pre-show that you have to be a Snobis supporter to be a part of, we talked about political campaigns. More specifically, I'm pretty sure everybody is tired of those political campaign text messages. They're only going to get more hot and heavy as we get closer to the presidential election, but not just with political or presidential campaigns, but everybody down the ticket wants to send you a text message, and political action committees and group for this and people for that. They all want to send you text messages. If you are getting tired of them, there are a couple ways to do it, one of which I wanted to be the hookup of the week. So what you can do is anytime you get those messages, you can, instead of deleting them, you can delete and report junk. But you have to do that. You actually have to do that action. You have to read the message. You have to press and hold the message and delete it. And then instead of just deleting the message, you got to delete and report junk. That will, I guess, send Apple a signal that, hey, text messages like this coming from this sender is mostly junk. So we're going to flag them. In a perfect world, that's what I think happens. But
allegedly, but it has to happen. That's what I do, and I'm still getting them.
Right, because they're sending them from different text messages, because a phone number is a phone number. You can get a phone number to send a text message. and they get
Right.
hundreds of them, if not thousands. So you could be doing that till you blue in the face. My hookup is I haven't done this, and I'll tell you why I haven't done it yet, but I am a fan of shortcuts. So I quickly went on a search to see if there is a way that you can automatically reply to the text messages, because the majority, all of the text messages, I think this is even by law, you have to have a way to opt out of receiving future text messages. And the way you do it is they always put at the bottom of the text message, stop to opt out, stop to quit, opt out. You have to reply with that word in order to stop it from removing your phone number from that messaging list so they won't text you anymore. So you actually can go in and create a shortcut to where it will check your incoming messages. Again, I'm not going to tell you specifically the steps because I haven't done it yet, but you can actually go in and create a shortcut to search your text messages for those words. You can put stop or stop to whatever you see the most. If it's stop to quit, if it's just stop, it'll search your messages for that word. If it finds that word, then you can set up a shortcut to automatically reply to that message from the sender with that word. The reason why I haven't done it yet is because it's not specific to political campaigns. If you have a dentist, a doctor, a physician, a gym membership, a subscription that you want to get those text messages from, those notifications from, they also by law have to give you a way to opt out, and most of them are going to be the same. So you have to imagine in your mind that if you're setting this up, I'm going to get these political campaign text messages off my phone. And the way I do it is set up a shortcut that says, if the message has stop in it, it'll reply back, and with the word stop, that'll unsubscribe you. Well, you could just be texting your mama and say, hey, I need you to stop at the store and get me some lemonade. It's got stop in it. So your mother's going to send you that message, and then your automatic reply is going to be like, stop. Your mom's going to be like, what is that? What does this text message mean? Right. So you have to keep that into consideration when you're creating this shortcut, which is what I haven't done yet. I haven't figured out the one to many word. I think stop, the number 2, and then quit, all one word, I think is the one to where I don't use that jargon in my daily text messages. Stop to quit, the number 2 quit. Right. So I may start with that one and see how many it catches, and then maybe kind of go back in with another word.
Fine tune it.
And then fine tune it to get it to where it's only getting rid of those political campaign messages. Maybe the word political and stop, or maybe, vote and stop, or something like that. See if you can find a combination, but I haven't done it yet. But I know if you're just up to here, you don't care. There is a way. My hookup for the week is use your iPhone or Mac or iPad shortcuts to create a shortcut that looks for a word. And if it finds that word, auto reply back to that sender with that word. Going forward, anytime you get that message with that word, you don't even have to touch your phone. It'll automatically reply back. And in a perfect world, it'll remove you from their mailing list. So that's my hookup for the week. Again, you got to fine tune it, but that is a way that I can think of that hands off, that you can automatically get rid of those text messages.
Because I know I am sick of them. I've early voted already, so I don't want to get any more messages about early voting because I've done it. My vote's locked in. Don't need to tell me anymore. All right. That is going to wrap up the show for this week. We definitely want to thank you all for tuning in. Brother Tech, where can the people find you?
Sure. You can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And you can find me at Tech Savvy Diva all over the internets. And that's where I'll be. Finally, to connect, to comment, to share, to support our show, to become a member of our Discord community, you can head on over to snubwestcast.com to get all of the details. And with that, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.